Hello there. I'm going to do some intensive language practice the next few days. And I've reviewed some language apps. This is not like that though. I'm going to use some techniques that I've been discovering with flashcards that have been very helpful lately. So I wanted to document and see what's possible. My goal is to 2 days from now test myself and see if I can get 100% accuracy on 50 new terms or 50 new words, whatever the case may be. Actually, I'll talk about that in a minute. But 50 words may not sound like a lot if you do that over 2 days, but if you did that over an entire year, that would give you over 9,000 new words or new terms, which is a pretty good vocabulary jump. So I don't know how difficult it's going to be, because the way I've been using flashcards lately has been to very casually just add a few here and there, and this is the first time I'm going to really do it more with a specific goal in mind and a specific date. So let's see what's possible. I'm going to demo how I use flashcards for language learning. You can use this for any language and pretty much learning anything that requires rote memorization. And at the end of this, I'm not going to do it in this video, but I'm going to show you how you can take those same flashcards and supercharge them and take it to a whole nother level of expertise, which I'll probably try in a future video. But for this video, I'm going to do a basic simple exercise. So what I'm not going to be doing is using any kind of a flashcard app. I'm not going to be doing anything digitally. Basically, I'm going to write everything on paper. And the reason I'm doing this is because there's been a lot of research showing up lately about how students who write by hand using a pen or pencil remember things a lot better than if they just see them or just even type them. It's not quite the same thing as writing by hand. And I think with language learning, especially if you're learning a language that has a different writing system that's not, Roman character based. So with my example, I'm going to be working on my Thai because I'm going to Thailand in about 10 days. So I wanted to see if I can add a significant chunk of vocabulary to my Thai. So if you're going to be doing this kind of exercise, I suggest you, step one is work on your writing. You can do that on YouTube or other. There's a million ways to learn a writing system. The most difficult languages for this is going to be Japanese and Chinese, because they don't have an alphabet system. They have characters, which thousands of characters. So if you are doing this for Chinese or Japanese, you can do it, but my suggestion would be to get a book that teaches the writing in words and phrases, and then use those words and phrases on the cards and make sure that you write them correctly, because with a lot of writing systems, stroke order is very important, and you don't want to learn to do it incorrectly, because then you'll have to unlearn it later on. With Thai, I do know how to write and read okay, good enough to read and write. Not perfectly, but it's good enough. I think my goal is not to understand the perfect pronunciation just from reading, because I don't think that's how most people, not how most people learn pronunciation. They hear the words for years before they learn to read and write. And, writing is really just kind of like an afterthought that kind of lets you pick up what you already know, through your ear. So I'm not worried too much about perfect pronunciation. I know that'll come later. And I have the material that I'm going to be using I have audio for it too, so that's going to help me. A few other things with Thai, normally in the writing, they just smush all the words together without spaces in between. I'm not going to be doing that. I'm going to add slight spaces just to help me out as a bit of a handicap, but I think I'll still get the practice, and eventually I'm starting to do less and less spaces. The other thing, I'm going to be doing phrases as much as possible, unless it's a really long word, like the word for university. I remember when I learned that, it's Mahawitialai, and a word like that, maybe you want to write that on one flashcard, but for the most part, I think it's much more helpful to write sentences, because that gives you practice in context, and you're going to be making connections to the other words in the sentence. It just does something different for your brain when you're learning, when you have to memorize an entire sentence or learn an entire sentence. And like I said, if it's a really long word, maybe it's okay to write just one long word, but for the most part, I'm looking for sentences. So I'm probably going to be learning more than 50 words, but I'm going to have 50 flashcards and at least 50 words. And my method for making flashcards is pretty simple. They're just like this. And you can see that they They don't even have, I mean, this is just basically notebook paper. What I do is I just take a piece of paper, fold it, and keep folding it until it gets to a decent size. I don't want it to be too small because then I won't be able to fit all the writing on there, but usually I do it like this. I don't know. I mean, really, this is, I think, the least important part of the process is like how you make your flashcards. You can use 3x5 cards, or you can just do like this and cut it up. That's all I do. I just cut it up to about this size, and then I just, I cut it with scissors, and bada boom bing. If you really want to incorporate this so that it's on your phone or whatever, obviously you can still figure out a way to write it. You could probably take pictures of it after you've written it, or even, like, I'm sure there's apps that let you write it on screen and store that. So I think the key thing, though, is that you are writing it by hand. Now, where am I going to get the material for these flashcards, the sentences and words that I'm going to add? Essentially, I'm looking for, authentic sentences from primary sources, or study material too is fine as long as it's authentic. So I'm looking really I like conversations. I like especially things where I have the audio as well that I can play over and over, because then, I'll be like, I listen every day. I walk the dog and I'll listen to Ty in the background, and it's kind of magical how quickly you can start understanding things that you were completely opaque a few days before. And it's just like all of a sudden you're like, oh, I know that sentence. And you're hearing it over and over. You're getting the pronunciation right. The reason I don't focus too much on pronunciation when I'm getting started with this is because I know that'll self-correct with time. The more you hear it, the more you get exposed to it. I'm basically going to just go through the book and look for sentences. Any sentence where I don't feel like where I'm not understanding the meaning, that's a sentence that I'm going to add. And it can be just a word that I don't understand, or it can be the whole sentence, or it can be even words that I know, but I haven't quite heard in that context. When I was a kid, I had this idea that with foreign languages, if you just had a dictionary, like an English French dictionary, and you had a French text, you could just translate word by word, and then you would be able to learn a language. That is not how languages work, because of grammar, because of idioms and things like that, where the order of the words and how they're connected to other words really affects the meaning. So I think this is why I like sentences, because then you're getting a meaning that may be different from just the words alone. Right now it is Wednesday afternoon, I think about 4:00, and on Friday afternoon or evening, I'll test myself with those 50 flashcards to see if I can get 100%. That's what I'm aiming for. If I don't get quite 100, I'll still be happy if I get like 95 or whatever, but I think I can do it. I think I can. And it's not going to be perfect mastery in 2 days, but it's going to be, I think I can get a pretty good handle on it, and then I'll put it in my the deck that I've already started with all these other words, and I'll like regularly test on them, and then I'll show you in a future video how you can really master them and really like amplify that learning. So let's find some words and sentences. Okay, it's the next morning, and I've made my 50 sentences. I think I only did one actual word. Everything else was sentences, like I said. I have to say that it took a long time for me to write them all out. I'm a very slow writer in Thai. I think it took at least 2 hours for me to write and find all the sentences I want. But I will say that process, I feel like that was like 70% of the work. It's just some of the sentences I feel like I already can understand their meaning just by writing it out, because I have to think about it as I write it. I vocalize as I write it, and just that process puts it in the memory. So I think that is very effective. So tonight I plan to do an informal test to see how close I am to 100%. I feel like I'm pretty good so far. I'm guessing it's maybe at least 80%, maybe even closer to 100. But there are some words that and some terms that I do struggle with more. And I think what I need to do today to use my time effectively, because I think studying really is a lot of it is time management, and making sure that you're using your time effectively by like spreading out the study periods and not just cramming it all in one spot, and resting, putting a lot of rest in there, and getting enough sleep every night, and studying right before bed is supposed to be helpful. So I do all those things. And I only have 2 days, or technically 2 nights and 3 days, but 48 hours period, which is a very short time. So what I need to do is spread it out. I don't plan to go through the whole deck every time. Even if I just do like quick 2-minute sessions in which I review like 15, 20 words, that's fine. I just need to do a lot of those, because somewhere I read that the way that you learn something isn't the amount of time, or not just the amount of time that you put into it, but the number of times that you come back to something. And each time your brain activates and makes it stronger. So that's what I want to do today. And also really focus in on the problem words. Don't waste my time on a lot of the words that I know well. Those are the ones I need to like separate. So I'm going to create like a separate stack that is like my problem words and work on those the most. I find that some of the sentences that I'm struggling with the most are the ones with proper nouns. I put in one sentence with 2 types of food, Tom Yum Goong, yeah, and the other food I don't remember because it's a food I don't know. So I'm like wondering, should I include that word? But I'm like, it's a proper noun, but it's a word that people use and it's part of the culture and I'm going to hear it. So yes, I want to learn it. But I think what I need to do is like look up online what that meal is, so I actually can understand it more than just as words. I need to actually, see it and understand what the ingredients are and so on. So I think proper nouns are important because, if you're studying Korean and you don't know what BTS is, isn't that the name of the band? I'm not even sure. But I mean, I know who they are. I think they're like this huge band, but you don't even need to know their music. You just need to know them as a cultural term, because if you hear that in conversation, you need to know what it is. In Thailand, BTS is also the railway, the elevated train. See, I'm kind of blanking on that. But anyways, you get the point. Proper nouns can be very important. Basically, anything that you're going to hear is important. You want to have a full picture of the language. One other thing I'm going to do, maybe I'll show this in an example. I'll do a screenshot and show the process. But I did this in another video talking about how I use Google Translate or other translate tools to make sentences and like guess the output. I may play around with some of these more challenging ones that I'm not clear on and see if I can kind of clarify in my mind. So anyways, that's the plan today. I think maybe I'll show or at least tell you about how my test goes tonight, my informal test, and then I'll keep going for tomorrow. Like I said, I'm doing this in 48 hours to see if I can get 100%. I think I can. I wasn't sure about that before I wrote out all the sentences and started reviewing, but having gone over them now, I think it is definitely possible, and I'm pretty sure I'll get at least 95%, but I'm aiming for 100, so let's keep going. All right, I mentioned Google Translate. I wanted to show you a quick example of how I might use it, for especially with a sentence like this, where I have a sentence that I'm not 100% on the entire sentence. I know most of the words, but there's just like a few words that there's just really one word, but I want to make sure that word means what I think it means. So basically what this sentence says is, Pi surat bok wa ni ja glop duk ka, which I think means Mr. Surat says that today ni ja will come back, and then Duke ka, which the whole sentence means Mr. Surat said he would be back later today. Basically that Duke at the end is not what I'm not clear about. So what I can do is, I think it means later or late. So what I'm going to do is try putting that in English and see if that's what comes up. If I put in later, that's not what comes up. But sometimes there's different terms, and it doesn't look like it's one of those terms. So let me try late. Okay, here we go. All right, so I put in late, and Duke came up. Let me hear the pronunciation. Duke. So that's about what I thought it was. My pronunciation isn't always perfect, and that's the kind of thing that I can read, but I sometimes get the tones wrong. I don't worry about it because I know that that'll self-correct with time as I hear more and more of the language. So anyways, though, if you type in what you think the word is, or you don't have any clue what the word is, you can also reverse and type in the word manually. If if it's a language that doesn't have Roman characters, you may need the keyboard. Actually, with Google allows you to enter pretty good. You can actually type in what you think the sound is of the word, and it'll approximate it. So I think it's Duke. I don't know if that'd be D-E-U-K or D. Oh wait, I'm doing it this wrong way. D-U-K. No, it'd be that way. So let's see. I want it in Thai. The input tool is Thai. Let's see if I can. Okay. Yeah, there we go. So if you type in the letters, it'll give you like the different ways that might be spelled. So this is what I want. This Duke, and it means late. So that's one way you can do it, just like that. And I think by doing this, or what I did with that other word, the salad, yam. I'm trying to remember just off the top of my head, because I've looked at it. Yam woon. I can't remember it completely off the top of my head, but that salad, by researching it and looking it up in the different terms, interestingly enough, it wasn't salad actually. It was a different word, but the whole phrase is what we would call in English salad, which is why you can't translate word for word sometimes. Sometimes when you put a sentence together, it won't make sense if you translate it word for word. That's just how idioms and languages work. So I suggest you do that if you are having trouble with breaking the word down. See if you can identify what the parts, and they may just be filler or connectors or something that we don't even need in English, but it's fascinating to see what those details are. Another example, this other sentence I had, let's see, it's pok yu ban na, and that means basically staying at house na. I know this sentence means I'm staying at my aunt's house, so it means staying at aunt's house. They don't really have the I in there. It's just kind of implied from the context. You can add it. They could say like pom pak yu ban na, but the word at the end, na, is I was thinking about this. It means aunt. I know that, or it means something kind of relation, but I wasn't clear if that was the word for aunt. So I wanted to look that up. I know with other words like grandpa and grandma, Thai will have different words for whether it's a male, whether it's the mother's father or the father's father, and so on. So I want to see for aunt, is that the case? So the main word for aunt that Google tells me is ba. Ba. And by the way, don't always trust these translate tools. They're not always accurate. I mean, they're not 100% accurate. For example, if I put I run in Thai in Google, it pretty much always uses shan, which is more of a female I, whereas I would more commonly use a pom, which is a male I. Thai is very vague about that, but there are kind of like tendencies, and Google tends to always use shan. So you have to be aware that things like gender specifics and formality are often not 100% accurate, which is why it's better to get your words from an authentic source. And anyways, back to aunt. I wasn't clear on aunt, so it suggests ba. It does have down here though, this other word na, which, let me copy that and translate that directly. Because when you translate it, the first thing that shows up is aunt, but it also has uncle, which is kind of fascinating. So this na, which, let me hear the pronunciation. Na is more like, I don't think you can hear Google's translation, but I'm replicating it pretty good. Is more like a sort of a gender-free term for some kind of just any. It could also be elder, great aunt, great. So basically, just a relative or a kind of a friend of the family, an older person. I know that Filipino. I feel like Tagalog has a similar term for, or maybe they just say like auntie, like for somebody that isn't necessarily your aunt. It's just like a relation. So things like that, breaking down a sentence for terms. Once you've done this, now every time I hear this, nah, I'm going to remember that much better than if I had just left it as a sentence. So look up any terms like that, break down sentences. It really helps. Okay, it's been 24 hours, so I'm going to do an informal test to see. Honestly, I think I can do 100% right now after 24 hours. So I feel like confident, but if I don't get 100%, I won't beat myself up because I still technically have another day for this challenge. Two things I want to emphasize. I don't worry if I don't get the English wording 100% accurate. and I'm only going from Thai to English. Going from English to Thai is more difficult and probably something I'll do in the future, but I'll talk about that later. So I'm just going to go through these and to show you how I would do these. So I always vocalize. So ke ni na. So ke ni na. It means like just this or just this one. So what I wrote down is that's it for now. I know what I'm saying and I know what it means, so I feel like it's right. If I miss some nuance or if something's different, then that's wrong. But for this instance, that's right. Pom pit ang means like I'm to blame. I'm the one responsible for it. I'm the one at fault. See, I didn't say at fault. I said I'm to blame, but I feel like I got the meaning right. The meaning is really what matters. So yak, tan, I want to eat, I just want to eat, tamim gung, and something else. All right, I was not really expecting that to happen so quickly, but I got 100%. So I don't feel the need to continue to do this tomorrow. I'm just gonna keep studying back to normal. I'm gonna take the deck that I made, the 50 cards. I'm not gonna throw them in the trash. What I'm gonna do is incorporate them into my old deck and just study them a little more casually now. I think, I could do this like all the time and keep doing it, but the hardest part was definitely writing it out. But in some ways that was the most helpful. It really improves my reading and writing. I can feel the difference after just like 2 hours of that. It's very powerful. So I will continue to add cards to my deck, and probably, the cards that I know really well, I'll probably put them aside for a while and keep this deck to a manageable size. I'm not going to review it every day. I just review like a few minutes here, a few minutes there. I think I prefer that. And but I think this is a great method. I think the key things are to zoom in on the problem cards and not waste all your time on the cards that are pretty easy. I did also mention that there's a way to supercharge this, and what that is basically. And I would do this probably first with the cards that I do really well, that are easy. I would, instead of going from Thai to English, from Thai to English, instead of looking at it in Thai and trying to figure out what it means in English, go the other way. Start with English and try to say it in Thai. And there's obviously different ways that you can express something, but see if you can get, the general concept across. And as you get better, you'll be able to know how well you're doing. But I think it's like forcing your brain to kind of grapple with that is very powerful and helpful. So maybe actually do it with the hard ones too, because I was kind of playing with it as I did the deck, and I think it's very helpful even if you don't get it right, because you're forcing your mind to think about it. This was a fun challenge. Maybe I'll do a similar challenge or a more intense challenge in the future. If you have any ideas for language challenges, I feel this is a great technique, and I'm going to keep doing this. And I'll be going to Thailand in, I think about 10 days now, and maybe I'll do some Thai content. I don't know. I haven't really thought about it too much yet, but we'll see. Hope to see you there.